Chandler Rome from West Palm Beach in spring training. Everyone's favorite. He's going to join us at 10:15. I'm going to make you like this guy. He is funny. I like him. We're going to talk about what's been going on at Astros spring training. He put together an article in the Houston Chronicle that I saw yesterday, and it talks about Framber Valdez, who now with Justin Verlander gone, is thought to be the Astros ace. He was fifth in the American League Cy Young voting. He got a victory in the All-Star game. He got a victory in the World Series. Threw an American League high 201 1/3 innings last year. Set a major league record with 25 consecutive quality starts. I mean, check. He's an ace, right? Framber Valdez is an ace. That leads me to this question. What the hell is an ace? I looked this up because I feel like it's one of those terms that is entirely subjective. Much like as Political Rot pointed out to me when I posed the question on Twitter, franchise quarterbacks are subjective. Per Wikipedia, a baseball ace is a starting pitcher considered the best pitcher on a team and nearly always the first pitcher in the team's starting rotation. Barring injury or exceptional circumstances, an ace typically starts on opening day. In addition, aces are usually preferred to start crucial playoff games, sometimes on 3 days rest. The Wikipedia definition of baseball ace continues. The term may be a derivation of the nickname of Asa Brainard. Asahi is his real first name. A 19th century star pitcher who was sometimes referred to as ace. Okay, so we're going back to the 1800s from this. Because I figured that ace came from the term that we used to describe fighter pilots in the early days of aviation. The Red Baron in World War I flying a biplane, or insert a number of pilots during World War II, where planes really became the future of warfare.
I thought it had to do with playing cards.
That would make sense too.
Ace is the best playing card.
Generally. Because, yes, in most
Depending
games,
on the game, you blah, 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 blah. Generally, it's the best.
Are you a big cards guy, Sean?
No.
Okay.
But I know that.
Okay. Could be that. But modern baseball analysts, guys, have started to use the term ace to refer to the elite pitchers in the game, not necessarily to the best starting pitcher on each team. I don't think I could go all the way and call Framber Valdez an ace, even though he did have the amazing consecutive start streak and proved that his postseason issues of 2021 are in the past. I can't quite go there because I don't think he has the best stuff on the Astros. I think Christian Javier has the best stuff on the Astros. I think also that the Astros, if you were to give them some truth serum and ask them, hey, who is the ace of your pitching staff, or who do you want the ace of your pitching staff to be? I think given the fact that they gave Christian Javier that contract, which is exceptionally team-friendly, they're hoping that it's Javier. So I guess the question is, and this is, a first world problem, you have two guys who are capable of being aces. Can there only be one? To make a reference to the movie Highlander. I think that's it, right? It's like about the Scotsmen who are immortal and you can only kill them by cutting their heads off. Can there only be one? Can you have multiple aces? I think if I had to pick between the two, I'm picking Christian Javier. But I leave this to you at 713-780-3776, 713-780-ESPN, twitch.tv/ESPN975. From Todd the Show, Framber is an ace. Without him, the bullpen wouldn't have been as good as they were. He did take a lot of work off of them. Would calling him a workhorse be more correct, given that he led the American League in innings pitched? And on top of that, he had all those consecutive quality starts? 25. That's insane. That really is an insane number to go that far. I mean, Justin Verlander, who had an incredible year last year, didn't even do that. It's pretty impressive. And Framber was more reliable in the postseason. But the term workhorse, I think, in the eyes of some, could be considered somewhat insulting, if not racist, right? I mean, I know we've gotten to that point where if there's any animal descriptions or comparisons made to athletes these days, some people are going to throw a hissy fit, and I'm not intending to do that. But you do know that Framber Valdez is the guy who's going to be able to go the distance for you.
I think he led the majors in innings pitched.
Definitely the American League.
And he had 25 quality starts. And
right.
He was 5th in AL Cy Young voting.
Right. I mean, but he wasn't the ace last year because of how good Justin Verlander was. And
I think you can have 2 aces on one team.
I actually agree with that. I do. I feel like, though, if I have to pick between one or the other, I'm picking Christian Javier over Framber Valdez. And I might be too much of a Christian Javier stan, and he might have a terrible year this year.
Yeah, let's see it for a full year of starting for Christian Javier. I think he's still good just before we call him an ace.
That's fair.
If Framber threw 25 straight quality starts and we're like, not sure if he's consistent enough. Christian Javier started half of the season and we're like, ace. That seems a little too much. I get he's more tantalizing of a prospect, but I give it to Framber because read the first part of the Wikipedia definition. Who's going to start opening day? Probably Framber. Most likely Framber. Barring injury.
That is true. But I think here's the funny thing about baseball. There are lots of moments where entitlement creeps into the game, where specific players are expecting, hey, I get to do this. Being the opening day starter is a big deal. And I think going into last year, wasn't there some hesitation over Verlander being the opening day starter because he wasn't with the team at the end of the 2021 season? I feel like that was a storyline, and there was an expectation that maybe it's going to be Framber to open up the season because of that. That was a feeling inside the clubhouse. Off the top of my head, I honestly forget if it was Framber or if it was Verlander to open the year. I do believe it was Verlander, but I honestly could be wrong on that front. It's an expectation. It is an honor. Sort of like the same thing where some players who have played in the game a really long time who maybe aren't as good at their position as they used to be, Derek Jeter, don't move away from shortstop for somebody else who's actually a superior player at the position like Alex Rodriguez. Honestly, we're going to talk about the greatest Yankees ever. How about Aaron Judge potentially giving up right field to move to left field for Giancarlo Stanton? How about that?
That's very selfless. Framber did start.
It was Framber. Okay.
It looks like. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was what was going into the regular season. And I appreciate the help. I'm sorry. Sometimes all this stuff.
And it was so hard to look up because it started with this year's schedule, and there's no grid to go back last year. So I had to click the back button 12 times on MLB.com.
Outrageous.
Come on, MLB.com.
Come on. Yeah, clean it up. Clean it up and indict the Dodgers. 713-780-3776 to call in, to text in. What is an ace? Is Framber Valdez definitively the Houston Astros ace? I would go with Christian Javier because I think he's got better stuff. But to Sean's point, maybe I do need to wait for an entire year, given that Framber Valdez just led the American League in pitching.
He just had the year you were expecting from Javier.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a shill for the Houston Astros right now. Someone who is not a shill for the Houston Astros, Chandler Rome of the Houston Chronicle, is in West Palm Beach at Astros spring training. We're going to ask him about Jeremy Pena's arms. And joining us right now from West Palm Beach at Astros spring training, the one and only Chandler Rome of the Houston Chronicle. Chandler, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to hear from you. So before we dive into what's going on at spring training, in the last segment, we were talking about the piece that you have in the Houston Chronicle about Framber Valdez embracing the role of an ace. This is a subjective question, sort of like the idea of what a franchise quarterback is. But in your opinion, what is a baseball ace?
In my opinion, I think the term is kind of overused. I personally wouldn't put Framber Valdez in the ace category yet. I think ace is reserved for guys like Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, that ilk. I mean, for me, this is just my opinion. I think ace is that you have to do it for a while. You have to be, I'm not saying you have to be a first ballot Hall of Famer like those three guys, but you've got to prove yourself a little bit more than, maybe Framber has to be considered a true ace. Now, I guess fans and other people can view it however they want. Certainly on this staff, if there is going to be an ace, it certainly sounds like it's going to be Framber, and he's given every indication and has a track record, a short track record, albeit, to back it up. But in my opinion, I think the term ace is overused a little bit. I think it should be reserved for, 5, maybe 10 pitchers in the game. And, I don't think Framber has reached there yet, but who knows? Maybe he could get there.
With the consistency he showed this season, it does seem like he is on the right track. I'm glad you answered it that way, because it does feel like it's the same way that we talked about the word elite when it came to quarterbacks in the NFL, like about a decade ago. It started off with a select few, and then all of a sudden we were deciding to put Joe Flacco there. I'm not saying that Framber Valdez is Joe Flacco, but Framber Valdez had a very good year. I guess my question is, I really like Christian Javier's stuff. I feel like it wouldn't be that long before we could be looking at Christian Javier and perhaps saying, yeah, this guy's clearly a bit of a better pitcher than Framber Valdez. Is that something that you could see happening?
I mean, certainly. Certainly the Astros think so. They're going to give him $64 million and the contracts they gave him. But I think when we got to kind of go back to track record. Baseball is such a sample size sport. It's such a, you have to kind of show it for more than one season. You have to show it for more than maybe 2 seasons sometimes. Certainly, Framber Valdez has the track record that Christian Javier doesn't. Neither of them have a long track record by any means, but certainly I think Christian Javier, if he does what he did in the second half last year and the playoffs when he was basically unhittable, I think certainly, he could vault himself, past Framber Valdez and be the best, most elite pitcher on the staff, but he kind of just has to go out there and do it. He has to, put more innings out there. I mean, he's only thrown more than 110 major league innings once. He's got to prove his durability a little bit, but the stuff is, you can't question the stuff. The stuff's really, really good, and the Astros hope. You saw, actions speak louder than words, and the deal they gave him, they think that there's more in there. They think he can be durable. He's just got to go out there and do it.
Chandler Rome of the Houston Chronicle. He covers the Houston Astros. Chandler, the big news thus far out of spring training has been injury related, and I don't know that the sky is necessarily falling, but Yordan Alvarez once again dealing with a hand issue. Lance McCullers, another elbow issue. These have been patterns for both of these two players. What's your level of concern for both?
Well, I kind of want to be hesitant to call what Lance McCullers has an elbow issue because we don't know. No one has told us what is wrong with him. I mean, we've heard arm, we've heard elbow. I want to shy away from going into any specifics because no one will tell us anything. Lance McCullers has not spoken to reporters since we've been allowed into camp. To be quite honest, I have not seen him. He's here. Other people have seen him. I just personally myself have not seen him in West Palm Beach since I got down here. So without talking to him, I really don't want to give any specifics as to what is injured. But I certainly think as the days go by and he hasn't picked up a baseball and there's still kind of sketchy information out there, there's just no information out there about what's going on, the concern level rises because, the longer you go without throwing, the longer you get set back. And, traditionally after something like this, you don't just go back to throwing on the mound. You have to build back up a little bit. And, the longer he goes without throwing, I certainly think more concern is warranted. With Yordan Alvarez, it doesn't sound near that drastic. He was in pretty good spirits. He basically just said, we'd rather take a couple days rest during spring training than, push it and have something happen in the season. They're here for 6 weeks. Again, I think with him, though, if he doesn't start swinging a bat in the next couple days, as he said he would, then you can maybe start to get worried a little bit. But just judging by the tone of how Yordan spoke, judging by kind of the tone of people in camp, it doesn't sound like that's one to be too overly concerned about.
Chandler Rome on the HR&P guest line from West Palm Beach at Astros spring training. From the outside looking in, it seems like right now the one position battle for the Astros is center field. Chas McCormick, it seems like it's his to lose, but he acknowledged he has to earn it. Sounds like Jake Myers is in the conversation. I know that Dana Brown had mentioned Drew Gilbert as somebody who could potentially be on this team sooner rather than later, which was somewhat noteworthy. How much of a strong, grip does McCormick have on that gig right now?
I mean, I don't think it's like a stranglehold on it, I think you have to consider him the favorite. But and I kind of wrote it this morning in a story that posted. I think just fans and people were so captivated by that catch in the World Series, and obviously it was huge. It's going to be one of the biggest plays in Astros history. And Chaz did play well down the stretch, but I mean, I think also a lot of people forget he was demoted to AAA in July last year. He didn't spend any time down there because Michael Brantley got hurt the day they demoted him, so they brought him back up, and he never went back down. So, Chaz, he's got a good attitude about it. He said he came in here and he said, I have to earn it. I have to earn my job. He's got to get better against right-handed pitching. He was not a good hitter last year against right-handed pitching. Got to get a little more consistent in his swing. Got to kind of, righties are just throwing him slider after slider last year and really exploiting him. So he worked this offseason on the direction of his swing, on some better swing decisions, not chasing as much, not whipping as much. And then Jake Myers just has to kind of show he's healthy. I mean, last year, a lot of things went wrong for him. Some of them not in his control. I mean, the Astros did not manage his season well last year at all. I think we can all say now that they rushed him back from that shoulder surgery, rehab. Dusty Baker was on record last year saying, he asked for Jake Myers to play more rehab games and was overruled. They brought him up, and he clearly was a shell of himself. So I think an off season where he could clear his head, come into spring training healthy, I think that's going to work wonders for him. He did just have a baby, so maybe there could be some dad strength that gets Myers some more pop. But I think certainly, just given how last year went, I think you do have to consider McCormick the favorite. But Jake brings a couple things that Chaz doesn't. Jake is a more natural center fielder. He's faster than McCormick. He's a better center field defender than McCormick. I think Chaz probably has the better offensive approach. He has the better offensive track record at the big league level. So they're going to have to find a way. This is not a closed competition. I think they're both going to be. That's going to be the one where, I'm not saying spring training games are the end-all, be-all, but I'll be really curious to see how both of these guys perform in some of these spring training games, because that could really, be the difference here.
Chandler Rome of the Houston Chronicle covers the Houston Astros. He's in West Palm Beach at spring training. There's been a lot of bod talk at spring training. Martin Maldonado lost 17 pounds. Mauricio Dubon's gained 25 pounds over the course of the past year. And everyone's obsessed with Jeremy Pena's Hulk-esque triceps. Which of those three has impressed you the most?
I mean, I think, Martin Maldonado obviously looks better. He looks slimmer. He looks in better shape. But, I mean, I think what Dubon did, to put on, when he says when the Astros acquired him from San Francisco last year, he weighed 165. He reported to camp at 190. I mean, he looks like, if you look at a picture from him, last year with the Astros, if you look at it, I mean, it's pretty startling kind of how much bigger he's gotten now. He did that because the Astros kind of met with him, showed him his exit velocities, and basically said, look, we have data that says if you hit the ball 1% harder, then it'll do this, and this, and it'll really kind of pay dividends for you. So he really took that to heart. It's not, he said, I wrote that, he ate 5,000 calories, ate so much, he was stuffing himself, but it's not all that way. It's more muscle. He was in the gym a bunch. He looks just a lot more filled out. He looks good. So, certainly that could help him. He did not have the offensive season he wanted once he got to Houston. So maybe giving a little more pop, a little more carry on the ball, maybe that could help him a little bit.
He is Chandler Rome. Chandler, before I let you go, this is why I'm a big fan of you. I feel like you're already in regular season form online. You tweeted out about a week ago. Did you know that the Astros pitching staff had only 2 pickoffs all season last year? One person responded, they won the World Series, Chandler. You said, where did I say they didn't? This person responds saying, is this my suspicion? Are you confirming my suspicion that the Astros suck and you hate them? You respond, get a life, clown, after saying I was writing about the rule changes. Do you feel like you need more spring training to continue to throw heat on Twitter?
No, not really. People are giving me crap today because Dusty Baker just refused to give us injury updates and mistakenly cited HIPAA as a reason why, and people are trying to say that it's my fault. And it's if they're going to put the manager out there and he's going to say that on the record, then why not write it? Maybe update us before. I don't know. Like I'm just a guy. I'm just someone here, doing my job, trying to hear what's going on. So, no, I don't need any more spring training. I'm good. I think I'm regular season ready.
I think you're regular season ready as well. And by the way, nothing makes me laugh more than Dusty Baker talking about injuries. And I imagine for you guys, you deal with him every single day. He's seems like a very affable guy. But whenever he talks about injuries, he's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, what hand is it? Where he's like not 100% sure what hand Yordan Alvarez has injured. I get a huge kick out of when Dusty's like that. So I apologize to them, and I know it makes your job more difficult.
Yeah, but we did find it funny that Yordan said it was his left hand that's bothering him now, but his injured list stint last year was because of his right hand. So who the hell knows which hand is what's actually hurt last year is actually hurt this year. One of them is hurt, and perhaps it will get better soon.
That is Chandler Rome. You can check out his work in the Houston Chronicle at Chandler_Rome if you want to see the occasional murder online. Chandler, appreciate your time, man. Let's do it again.
All right, thanks, guys.